Be Kind, Rewind, a film from 2008, directed by Michel Gondry, starring Jack Black, Mos Def, Mia Farrow, Danny Glover. And the IMDb plot summary: two bumbling store clerks inadvertently erase the footage from all their tapes in their rental store. In order to keep the business running, they reshoot every film in the store with their own camera with a budget of $0. So this film, I felt at why I wanted to start with this one too, is it really for me captures the feeling of making these DIY movies. And like I mentioned, when I was younger, 8 to 15 or so, I was making all movies with my friends and my sisters. And in this film, when again, the plot summary, they have to recreate all these movies. So it's like Ghostbusters and RoboCop, and they're filming versions of those films just with things they find around their neighborhood. It's shot on a camcorder. All the editing is done in camera. There's crazy effects, but it's all in camera effects. And, the movies are only 20 minutes long. And these were the exact types of movies that I was making. I wasn't like remaking, a Ghostbusters or something like that. I'd write my own stuff and produce it, but it was that very DIY feeling. You're recording it on videotapes as these folks do. And a lot of this, amateur actors, you're pulling in your friends and your family when you need someone else. I think those sections of this film, more than any else, their film for me really capture my experience of making movies, because this is as far as I got. Watching movies of people actually making real films, like I never did that, but I did make a ton of these, which I just love the inventiveness, the different things that they do. There's a scene where they're needed to shoot like a day for night scene, which is a scene where they're shooting during the day, but they have to the film takes place at night, and they use all these really inventive, like in with the camcorder, some negative filter in it, and I just remember doing similar things like that too, where it's like, look, I don't know what to do, like I got to figure out some way to get things done. Just thought that was really funny. The other thing I thought was good about this movie too, that really captured what it felt like to make a movie, is like you really are, in a way, kind of like doing it for yourself and for your close friends. So at least that was my experience with these films. They pull in people from the neighborhood and they want to be involved in the film just because they like seeing themselves on, the big screen, even if it's just a small TV. And, it is that sense too of the reason why I liked doing it was because it was fun to then see myself on the TV, but then also share it around to my friends and family when I would finish these films. So I just loved that they captured that as well, of getting everyone in the town involved. And they're proud of the work they do, similar to, like in the movie The Music Man, where all the town's kids are in the band because they want to be on the stage and be performing. And I kind of got that vibe a lot from this movie too. So it's really, for me, like the movie that captures my experience making movies. I mean, as a film, I don't think it's really that great, to be honest. Michel Gondry, who's made some very surreal and crazy good movies like Eternal Sunshine, is definitely kind of weak, I feel. The beginning of the movie is really odd. I don't think that really works. The tone of it is kind of crazy. I think Jack Black is never been more like annoying. It's like they dial up the worst parts of his screen persona, where you literally are like, this guy is just so annoying. He has no likable qualities, where usually he has a little bit of a softness. Here, I don't know whose decision it was Michel Gondry's or Jack Black to kind of take it to this extreme, but I just don't think it really works at all. But the thing that still really does, and upon rewatch, because I hadn't seen this film in a while, it really does pick up every time you're seeing them make one of these little movies or watch what the movie turned out to be. And I think that part of this film is incredibly inventive and really fun and makes me remember back to when I was making films.
Yeah, I'd never watched this movie. I don't think I had heard about it because one of my favorite podcasts is titled after the title of the movie. So,
oh, really? Okay.
So I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of clearly an homage to that. So it's a great podcast. I'm sure people who listen to podcasts know about that podcast because it's kind of legendary now. But yeah, you're right. Like when the movie started, I was like, oh, this is one of Alex's nerdy movies. I have to watch this.
Yeah.
Sure, I will muster up all the courage to watch this. And I was on my phone and I was like, oh yeah, Jack Black is on a 200. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
What's happening? Blah, blah, blah. And then something just kind of clicked in to your point, when they started shooting those movies, and also the way they find out that all the tapes have been erased. I think that whole sequence and the whole Mia Farrow stuff in the beginning, like how they get to the main plot, I think is also quite creative, because it has to make sense, right? Like, why should we care? Why are you doing this? And I think that's what great actors like Donald Glover and such bring to the movie. There's gravitas, like you care that this door must stay open. I mean,
Right.
and this is, in my mind, like that's the most critical thing about kind of smaller, intimate movies, is that the stakes are, in this grand scheme, are very low, but they have to feel very, very high and heightened, and that's how you do it. So I think that was great. But yeah, once they start cracking on shooting all these movies, it's absolutely brilliant. Like I already want to rewatch all of that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, pizza underneath your head as your kind of blood spattering thing, and all sorts of moments. Just, and you know, it made me just think of, like you were saying, yes, making movies is hard and the magic is more in the final product. I think actually that's not true. The magic is in the making of it as well, even though it's so hard to do it. And I think it's when you strike those little moments, when you cook up inventive ways of doing something, that is magic, you know? And then finally, towards the end of the movie, I was completely in tears, you know, watching everybody assemble in that little store. And then, of course, the entire town outside, because they were watching it projected on the screen, and they didn't even know that was happening. And I know this, a lot of people might say, oh, this is Hollywood or movies being self-referential and patting themselves on the back. But the point is, I think we as humans, the one thing that does unite us, and this is going to sound very corny and saccharine, is storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've been doing this from the beginning of times, before we even knew how to articulate or speak. We used to gesture and gather around a fireplace and tell stories. And I think there is something magical, like you were saying, people want to see themselves or be a part of it. And it's this combination of camaraderie, teamwork. It's seductive, it's exciting, but it's also primal. You know, you're part of something that's a little bit bigger than you, but it still feels so much off you. And I think those final scenes really capture that moment. And who cares if any of this is even good or not, you know?
Right, of course. Yeah.
But the point is, in the movie, it's actually pretty good. Like, I would totally watch all of those movies, and that's why they're a hit. There's a line around the block I love when Donald Glover comes back. They don't even let him get inside his own store.
Yeah.
They're like, who are you? Get in line. We've been standing here since hours. So I know it's probably not his best work, Michel Gondry's, but I was pleasantly surprised by how much this movie moved me and how creative it was. So yeah, I'm so glad that you recommended this movie.
Yeah, it sounds like you might have liked the film more than I do, actually.
Probably. Maybe it's because I watched it, you know, first time.
No expectations too.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the beginning of the movie, I was like, oh gosh, this is gonna be horrible.
Yeah.
And then it sort of changed on me.
Yeah. I mean, I had really high expectations for this film when it came out originally, because coming after Eternal Sunshine and Signs of Sleep, two films I really did like, and then this was just sort of like, is he sort of running out of steam? But I think the sweeted versions of those films, what they call it, the DIY versions, still just, I mean, I'd love to just watch those. Like, I want just like a DVD of like all of those and just could watch them. It's so good. But I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I will say though, in defense of Jack Black, it's a lot. That said, I think you have to make it believable that these two people who are seeming idiots can actually pull this off.
True.
And I think in order to do that, you have to show at least one of the two who's just so out there and on such a 12 all the time that you can sort of see that energy can be harnessed. If harnessed in the right way, it can lead to something by the other guy who is the straight man, you know, between the two. So I think the more I think about it, that's what they were going for. But yeah, those first 15 minutes, it is a little bit tough to watch for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.